Four friends, Hassan, Hamza, Saad, and Bilal, planned a short trip to a quiet, isolated place called Blackshore Beach. On the way, an old shopkeeper warned them not to stay after sunset because the sea gets loud at night. They laughed and ignored him. When they arrived, the beach felt strangely empty. There were no birds, no fishermen, and no other visitors. As evening fell, the sky darkened and the waves grew heavier. The sound of the ocean slowly changed, becoming deeper, and almost like faint whispers carried by the wind. While sitting around a small fire, Hassan suddenly heard someone calling his name. At first the others teased him, but soon they heard it too. The wind clearly carried their names from the direction of the water. The voices didn't sound normal. They felt layered, like many whispers speaking together. When they shined a flashlight toward the sea, they thought they saw a tall shadow standing in the shallow waves, but it vanished with a flash of lightning. Nervous, they went inside their tent, yet none of them could sleep. Around 2 a.m., Hassan quietly stood up and walked toward the ocean as if hypnotized. His eyes looked empty. They chased after him, shouting, but he didn't respond. He stepped into the water calmly, while dark shapes moved beneath the surface. The whispers grew louder, repeating, "Come home, join us." Then Hassan gave a faint smile and disappeared under a wave without a scream. The ocean suddenly became silent. The next morning, they searched everywhere but found no sign of him. In the sand were Hassan's footprints leading into the water, but none coming back. There around them were dozens of other footprints, all going toward the sea. Police called it a drowning accident, yet the three friends knew what they had seen. Later, Saad discovered that decades ago, a fishing village near that beach was destroyed by a storm, and many people drowned. Survivors claimed the sea had whispered their names before the disaster. Weeks later, Saad began hearing the whispers clearly. One morning he left a note saying, "They just want company, Hamza," and Bilal rushed to the beach and found him walking toward the waves in a trance. They grabbed him just in time. For a brief second, the water turned clear, revealing pale faces beneath the surface, eyes open and hands reaching. Hassan was among them, but he looked trapped, not peaceful. The sea roared angrily as they pulled Saad back, then everything fell silent again. They never returned to Blackshore Beach. The whispers faded with time. But sometimes, when the wind blows near the ocean, Hamza still hears his name. Now he knows the truth. The sea only takes those who choose to listen. Daniel and Sophie decided to spend a quiet weekend at a remote beach far from the city. They wanted peace, privacy, and a break from their busy lives. The beach looked perfect. Wide shoreline, soft sand, and almost no one around. A small cafe owner nearby mentioned that people didn't usually stay there overnight, but Daniel ignored it, thinking it was just an old superstition. By sunset, they set up their tent close to the water. The waves were calm, and the sky slowly darkened as stars appeared. Everything felt peaceful. Around midnight, while lying in the tent, Sophie felt something strange beneath her sleeping bag. The sand shifted slightly as if something moved under it. Daniel laughed and said it was probably crabs. They tried to ignore it and sleep. An hour later, the ground moved again, stronger this time. The center of the tent dipped slightly. Daniel turned on his phone flashlight and saw thin cracks forming in the sand beneath them. Suddenly, a hand-shaped bulge pressed upward, stretching the tent floor before sinking back down. Sophie gasped. Daniel pulled her outside. On the beach, they saw the sand moving in slow ripples, as if something massive turned beneath the surface. The ocean was calm and several meters away. Then they noticed human-shaped impressions forming all around them, like bodies buried just beneath the sand, pressing upward before fading. Terrified, they backed away. The sand continued rising and sinking for minutes. Shapes of faces, shoulders, and arms appeared briefly. Sophie began crying. As dawn approached, the movement stopped. The beach became silent. In the morning, everything looked normal, except faint body-shaped marks in the sand stretching toward the sea. Shaken, they spoke to an old fisherman. His face grew serious when they described it. He said that years ago, during a violent storm, a boat carrying migrants capsized near the beach. Many drowned, and some bodies were never recovered. The tide buried them under sand. Since then, locals believed the beach breathes at night, as if trapped souls were still moving beneath the surface. Daniel tried to reason it logically, but before leaving town, he returned alone for a forgotten bag. As he stepped on the sand, he froze. Fresh, wet footprints led from the water toward their old tent spot. The prints stopped exactly there. Slowly, the sand beneath his feet sank again. Small cracks spread outward. Daniel ran without looking back. Weeks later, Sophie still wakes from nightmares of sinking sand and unseen hands. Daniel avoids beaches completely, yet sometimes, when they stand on soft ground, they feel it, faint movement beneath their feet, as if the earth itself is quietly breathing. Ethan and Mia were on a road trip along the coast when they decided to explore an old abandoned lighthouse near a remote beach. Locals avoided it, warning that strange things happened during storms, but the couple, curious and adventurous, ignored them. The lighthouse stood on a rocky cliff, paint peeling, windows dark and broken. Below, the beach stretched with black sand and jagged rocks, completely empty. As evening fell, dark clouds rolled in and a storm approached. They set up a small camera to record the view and walked along the shoreline. Waves crashed violently and wind howled through the cliffs. Ethan joked about ghost stories, but Mia felt an uneasy chill. Around 10 p.m., lightning briefly lit the beach. Mia thought she saw a tall shadow standing in the shallow waves, motionless. She pointed it out, and Ethan saw it too, but it vanished as soon as he blinked. "It's just the storm," he said, though unease lingered. Back at the lighthouse, they waited inside until the storm passed. The wind rattled broken windows, and the old stairs creaked. Sitting on the dusty floor, they heard faint whispers from the beach below. "It's calling. Names," Mia whispered. The sound was distant but unmistakable, almost human. Suddenly, a massive wave crashed and the shadow reappeared, closer this time. Ethan grabbed Mia, pulling her toward the stairs. They ran up to the top, but the storm intensified. The wind carried a low voice. "Join us!" Through the cracked glass, they saw dozens of shadowy figures emerging from the waves, moving unnaturally fast toward the shore. The tall figure led them, gliding across the water. The couple backed away, panic rising. Mia tripped. Ethan helped her up, but when they turned, the shadows vanished as suddenly as they had appeared. By dawn, the storm subsided. They descended the lighthouse cautiously. The beach seemed normal, no shadows, no footprints. Yet in the wet sand, they noticed dozens of elongated footprints leading from the water toward the lighthouse, ending abruptly. Shaken, they left immediately. On the drive back, Mia glimpsed the waves and froze. The tall shadow stood in the surf, watching them leave. Ethan tried to rationalize it, but even he felt the dread. Weeks later, every time they passed a stormy beach or heard waves crashing, Mia swore she could see the shadow in her peripheral vision. Ethan admitted he sometimes glimpsed it too. They never returned to the lighthouse and never ignored local warnings again. The ocean, they realized, remembers those who stare too long, and some shadows never leave.